Hey, I mean, that's a good point.
I think we might start seeing some go back. I got to do it. I can't help it. I know it's not a regular show, but
here we go. But here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Here we go. It is happy hour number 4. I am Terry Bennett. It's Noe the Pro. If you missed it 2 weeks ago when we were doing this very show, Noe graduated to Protum. He is now a full man. No 2/3, 1/3, just a pure full pro intern. Noe.
Surprised you didn't say 3/5.
Hey, I was, sometimes you learn in today's world to dance around the topics. It is happy hour brought to you by Grandeur Pest Solutions. First off, before we start anything, I'm already holding intern Noe. How you doing? And what you drinking?
I'm doing well, sir. I am drinking some Brooklotic. It's a scotch, a peated scotch. It's called Port Charlotte Heavily Peated Islay Single Malt, and it's heavily peated, not, heavy peated.
I have no clue. You've said that 4 times like that's supposed to mean something. What does that even mean? Do you know?
So peated just means smoky, and scotch, the smokiness comes from the ground from the distillation. Islay is the island, and there's a bunch of farms out there that provide barley to these distilleries in Scotland, and that's where the smokiness comes from. Now, some companies like Ardbeg make it a little stronger. I love smokiness. This one is not bad. I'm almost done with the bottle, so that's why I'm gonna polish it off tonight. But yeah, it's just has a smoky flavor and a little bit of honey in the flavor. When you taste it.
Dude, you go all out for your alcohol. I will give you that.
As soon as I started really liking it, then I was like, let me go ahead and start collecting some that are to my liking. And so I have a bunch that I really haven't touched, only when people come over and they like whiskey. So anyway, man, how are you? And what are you drinking?
I'm doing well. I am not drinking Dr. Pepper, even though I have the shirt on. I drinking.
Love that shirt.
We found that today. I was telling you before we began, I think this might be my high school shirt next year for the show, which, by the way, if you're a high school fan that's also jumped over here, Grant is in studio tomorrow. We're doing a Sideline to Sideline taped episode. It won't be live. I'll probably put it up Wednesday morning. Just kind of talking about realignment and some major coaching news today that broke that we'll be talking about. I'll tease it for you. But I'm drinking Goodnight Loving. That's kind of been my go-to for the last few, I guess, about 2 months now. I'd heard about it before, but the fiance brought it one night. She was like, I'm not letting you drink Taka again. She brought this, and it's really good. And as we've talked before, it's still, at least here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, it's still at a good price point. It's not exploded yet in price. You can still get this size for about $25.
Yeah, I was telling you, you might as well go ahead and start collecting a bunch of those bottles because once it gets out there, it's going to go up in price. I remember getting Belvani 12-year Doublewood for $48 6 years ago, and now it's almost $70 6 years later, just because it's been in TV shows, it's been in movies, it's getting a lot of love and praise. I should have bought a bunch of those because it was so underpriced at the time. But,
we talked about that. Tito's the same way. Tito's showed up. Tito's 14 years ago, like when I'd go down to San Marcos, we go to Slitterbahn. There's a liquor store that we like to stop at, and it was literally a handle for $15. And then it started showing up on like How I Met Your Mother at the bar. There's a couple times where the waitresses, I don't know if that was product placement or homage to, sometimes that's happened. Somebody's like, I really like this liquor. We have a bar on our show. Let's put it on there. And I'll say this, Tito's isn't like overly expensive now. It's like $36, but I mean, there's a big difference for me, as you and I have talked about it. You like the whole, like, I like to test different things. I'm like, if I'm drinking for one reason and one reason only. So there is a price point for me that I kind of go, okay, I don't want to buy that. But anyway, speaking of price points, speaking of money, I bet you, what we're going to be talking about to start tonight. Ryan Fox, by the way, is going to join us around the 8 o'clock hour, probably get his opinions on this too. But let's go ahead and start it. I'm not real big on burying the lead and putting it in the back. This is the biggest story going right now. Shohei Ohtani, he spoke today, I guess, technically. I watched it. we'll get into our opinions about what we think about what's going on. But I will say this, that was the most robotic response. But you have to understand the differences in cultures. That's how that is done in Japan when something like this has happened. The media wants to ask questions, but they're very respectful of that boundary. And so they basically let them speak, and then that's it. It didn't play as well over here today, though.
I didn't get the chance to listen to it live, but I read a brief synopsis of what happened. I don't, the funny thing is when the news broke out last week, they didn't even talk about Ohtani possibly being someone that was gambling. Because, last year when we were covering the Big 12 preview, we were covering Iowa State.
Oh, yeah.
They had all those players get suspended, but their star quarterback, Hunter Deckers, he was able to get his parents to do the betting for him. That's how he was able to not have his name on it. But, I mean, they caught wind of it, and so he was suspended for the year. So another thing is happening here with Shohei Ohtani and his business partner, I think it's Ippei Mizuhara. The story keeps changing. If it's me, my honest opinion, I don't think he was the one that was gambling, but I think he was trying to help his friend cover up his debt.
All right. So here's the thing about this. There's been some confusion about the first story that came out was that he had helped, or he had basically been helped to do a gambling debt. That's what, from my understanding, the translator said. I think it's Ippei Masarahi. And then he changed the story. Now, the way I understand it, the camp didn't change the story. He changed the story. Now, we can go into the whole pull back the conspiracy and the camp told him to change the story. Possibly. I'm not saying that's not a thing. But there's also a world that when the dude gets caught, he panics. He says one thing. Then he realizes, oh, crap, I probably just screwed up even more, because even if I didn't tell him and he helped me, but I tell them that he helped me, that actually might look worse. Or he just, as a dude that got caught stealing, tried to lie his way out. He got caught and he didn't change the story. I don't think that in of itself has made this as big. Like, I still don't see anything that makes me think that Ohtani was betting. His personal life, everything about him, and I know we get kind of walled off, and we all get fooled at times, but nothing about him makes me think that dude's throwing down $4 million betting.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, just considering his contract was 10 years, $700 million, most of it deferred to the end of the contract. I think he knows what he's doing business-wise and handling his money. Having said that, I think the worst thing that might have happened was his business partner told him what happened, and he was just trying to help him pay off his debt.
So that's your big belief, is that he knew about it. He actually tried to help, and it kind of came out wrong because of how they did it. Again, and I think people are confusing when somebody says, oh, maybe he didn't know and stuff, like, because he's foreign, he's naive. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying maybe they just didn't think about, okay, I'm sending him the money, I'm fine with it, and didn't realize that was going to blow up to where it was like proven that it came from his account. And maybe they would have done it different through, cash or whatever they would have wanted to do. You brought up the deferment. Now, there's two camps at this, and I really started thinking about this, and this is where I get in trouble with myself because I start double thinking things like this. The first camp is a gambler's not going to defer money. A gambler always wants as much cash as possible. But then there's part two of me that started thinking, well, what if it's his business people knowing he's a gambler, saying, we don't want you having this much cash. We're going to defer it. We promise you, this in the long term, you're going to love it. I don't think that's it, but that is kind of that curveball.
So that's a good theory because he is a very private person.
Yes.
We had just found out a few weeks ago he got married, and with his star power,
as surprised as we did that they got married. I saw the pictures, and she looked like almost, I don't know, maybe is there a plot? Oh, geez, dude. I hate conspiracies, but damn it, we're getting conspiratorial here. Is there a world where they knew all this was coming out, so let's roll out that he's got married?
Possibly, because the marriage happened, or the marriage news happened before.
Like a week before.
Yeah, so again, for playing conspiracy theory, anything is possible. in conspiracy theories. So yes, that is possible. But I mean, I have heard he is a very private person.
Yeah.
No, I don't think some of his teammates or former teammates knew he was even dating anybody. He just had a quiet wedding to a lovely Japanese lady, as he put it.
Was, all of that was just weird.
Yeah, but again, it's the translation part. Japanese culture is a little bit different than American, well, a lot different than American culture. So they just it's nothing wrong with it. They just act different. Yeah. They do things different way, and that's fine. They conduct business different way. There's good side. There's different sides to it. I have no problem with it. So, and I think it's just more. The more you get to know Shohei, we might just see these odd differences. And we're in 2024. Social media is rampant. It's common for people to be open about their life. And he's just not that type of person. He's just not that type of person. You're open to an extent, not fully, and I'm very private.
Well, yeah, but I'm like, you go look at my Facebook timeline and it shows food, pets, occasional trips.
Well, I mean, that is basically your life. So
yeah. Wow, thanks. But I there for a time I was a little bit more political. Now I've kind of backed off. It's what's the point? And conspiratorial. It gets. I'll tell you, this is part of the whole issue that I have with this. And I'm not going to pretend that conspiracy theories and not believing people is a new thing. But again, with everything else in our life, social media amplifies that. And so just the idea that like immediately everybody, oh, he's guilty. Pete Rose needs to be put in the Hall of Fame now. And it's like, folks, y'all need to really, really read up on Pete Rose. There's a whole reason why he agreed to the ban, was because there was other things in his life that eventually came out that he was trying to hide. This is complete. Even if Ohtani bets, as long as he doesn't bet on baseball, I really don't care. I mean, that to me is the only line that is a big deal. I know there was a Miami Marlins pitcher in 2017 or something that was caught betting on other sports, and he was fined. So obviously even baseball doesn't look at it as that big of a deal. I think baseball is going to be more mad if it was a cover up. That's where you start wading into you really messed up instead of just accepted, hey, I did this and this is what happened.
Yeah, the 180 on the story right now the MLB is investigating it, because anytime you switch your stories, that just sounds very suspect.
Now, okay, so the reports, everything I'm reading is as of right now, the IRS, baseball, and FBI are baseball is just doing an exploratory investigation in general, but everybody else is still investigating it from the angle of this money was stolen. Mm-hmm. I still believe that, again, unless I get told otherwise, everything I've read, the first response came from the interpreter first before anybody talked to him, and then he changed the story, and somehow that's been grouped into the camp. Their camp changed their story. We won't ever probably know the truth of that. That's one thing, and I don't think there's going to be a smoking gun either way with this. I think if he was betting, he has enough money to make any of this go away, period. And that, again, goes back to I just don't see how he gets caught that easy. If he's really betting, I just don't see him. Again, I think he's smarter than, I'm going to send money to these people in my name, and then nobody's going to care.
And if he's not smart enough, he definitely has a smart enough team around him to play cover up.
All right, great point. Because other things people are saying is like, well, how did the interpreter get $4 million if he didn't know? Folks, y'all need to read up on how rich people get schemed, scammed, stolen from their families and friends all the time. And this interpreter, by all accounts, from what I read, they were close friends. I mean, in fact, if you want to believe the story that he helped him, they obviously were close enough that he gave him $4 million. So rich people think different. Yeah, $4 million to us is a ton of money, but for people that have way more than that, it would be like if somebody if you took $4 out of my account, I probably would think about it and go, oh, he must need it for something. Or I just didn't even pay attention. I doubt Ohtani's checking his bank records every day. So let's say it pops up $4 million. They ask the interpreter, and the interpreter says, oh, well, he needs it for this. How do we know he hasn't been lying in his interpretations between the business people and Ohtani himself? Because I have a feeling he was probably the only guy in between some of those financial decisions.
He probably was, and it was probably at Ohtani's request because they have a trust. They've known each other for so long. Uh, that is a very good point.
Thank you.
For once, no, it's fine.
Dadgummit.
We will never know.
No, you're right.
As of right now, we will never know. Something might. I mean, everybody's prone to a mistake or two. Something might have slipped. But yeah, I just think he was just trying to live that life, kind of like with that Jags employee.
Stole $22 million.
Amit Patel. Yeah, he kind of. So no, he's a little different because he was more trying to gaslight the Jags, saying he was initially kind of saying that, oh yeah, they should have been able to catch this a long time ago. It's not my fault that they didn't catch me. To now he's remorseful that of course he found guilty. He's going to serve prison time. So.
But it goes to show that even big corporations can be scammed.
Very true.
Again, for people that live day to day, check to check, or just quasi comfortable, we check our stuff every day. Like I think probably the first thing everybody does when they wake up, if they have a computer or a phone and they have time, check your bank. Let me see how much money I have today. What came out overnight? What was I not? All that. For somebody that's making the money he's making, he's not doing that. I promise you. I promise you. I have read and followed and watched enough about rich people, sports people that are rich, the Michael Irvins of the world, all the way up to the Tom Hankses of the world, and you reach a certain monetary amount that you're not checking your account every day. You're not even worried about it. You're not fighting the $5.99 Prime Video charge that you keep forgetting to cancel. So this idea that how could he slip past him? I think that was probably the easiest part of all this if he was working, as in his own device to try to steal from Ohtani and everything.
Yeah, with Ohtani, I know he's making $2 million a year as of right now with the Dodger contract.
He already had money from Japan.
He already had money from Japan. He has a lot of endorsement deals. He is the face of MLB at this point.
Well, and he's the face of Japan at this point.
He is the face of Japan.
I mean, he is the Michael Jordan of baseball. And again, he's got more money than God, as I think it was Forrest Gump said about when they did Shrimp. I got more money than God. But the other thing, though, God, what was the other thing? Man, there was something I was about to say.
Well, his interpreter was making over $300,000 a year too. He was making some pretty good money for
$500,000.
Oh, he might have been. I think I might have saw something. It was like 3 something.
And he's been an interpreter before. He was an interpreter. Now there's some apparently there's some issues with his bio, but everybody knows that he was with what's his name from the Red Sox, like 09.
Oh yeah.
So again, that's the other thing is people are saying, well, how does he have the money? Well, first off, him and the guy the bookie, they were friends as well. The guy even admitted, yeah, I'll let friends of mine float and double down more because they're my friends. I assume that I'll eventually get the money from them. The other thing I wanted to say, the biggest thing that I do agree can be a fear about all this. It's not even if Ohtani was betting, it's that and this is why they don't like people around them betting, is if that guy gets indebted to a bookkeeper, that creates a bridge to where Ohtani might have to do stuff that, or at least be approached to do things like cut points or, that kind of stuff. And to me, that's the bigger fear. I'm not worried that Ohtani bet. If he did, fine, get rid of him. If he bet baseball, I really don't care. I mean, he's a great player, but I've honestly, okay. I mean, if he's gone this year, okay, baseball will survive. But I'm worried more of if another person's sister's brother's husband gets down to a bookie by a lot, do they go to the player and just throw a couple games? What's a couple games in the long season?
It's 162 games. It's really meaningless.
I mean, and that's the same thing with basketball. It's the same thing with any sport that you're playing 80 and above. And then you go to the point shaving, like, in college basketball, you had CCNY back in the 40s. This was a powerhouse program that basically got brought down by not throwing games, by point shaving.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings me to my next point about all this is everybody is now saying, well, this is what happens when you get legal betting and they're advertising and all this. Look, folks, gambling is literally the 5 minutes after the first sport was created, the first bet was made. So this idea that it's any more now because it's legal is just foolish. In fact, I'll back it up and say it's the exact opposite, because now everything's on the table.
Yeah.
Everything's on the table because everything's legal. They have to turn paperwork into the government. The government has to make sure and check things. And I will say this again. The NFL gets no, or any sport, but I'm just using the NFL because it gets no benefit from trying to, write a script for bettors or anything like that. They make more money than the bettors, period. They don't need them. Maybe in the 60s, I could see that being a case. 50s when football was getting there, but it wasn't a major sport. So this idea that like these leagues are in on this, dude, that's just foolish.
Yeah. They're only concerned about betting now because it's legalized in a lot of places. It's still illegal in California, but it's illegal.
And that could become a trouble if he was betting on non-baseball still. But I mean, he's not going to serve jail or anything.
No, I think there's a lot of hearsay here. To me, the end result is just going to be nothing conclusive. Move on with our lives. Mizuhari will never work for baseball again, or for any player that needs interpreting. He'll just have to take whatever payment he can get from Shohei and just move on about his life, find some other job. Along your point you said earlier, he might not have even graduated from UC Riverside.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So it's something that's pretty big because he's the best player in baseball right now, the only two-way star, the biggest star in baseball. So it's going to get attention, but I don't think anything's going to happen from it. I don't think he's going to be suspended. Like I said, the worst thing that probably happened was he was trying to help pay off his friend's debt. I don't think he gambled. He doesn't need to. He has enough money, endorsement, even for someone that's rich. And the point you made earlier about how rich people spend money, a lot of times rich people at that level, they don't want to use their money. They'll just borrow money from the bank.
Yep.
And just invest their money at a higher interest rate. Remember, right now CDs are over 5%. They might as well just borrow money. They know we're going to pay it back. They just create a big line of credit, and that's how they really spend their money.
Same thing with doing the whole life insurance policy and basically getting a loan on your life. But that's a big thing now that's being pushed, but people don't understand that that's a benefit if you're over a certain income. It doesn't benefit you if you're taking the loan and paying in the whole. All you're doing like you're talking about this loan, it's basically just a credit card from the bank. And it's the American Express Black, where you can pay what you want, and at the end of the month, you pay it back. And you just keep doing that, and you just keep doing that. And like you said, your money's just sitting over in the corner, just growing. And right now, especially with interest rates high, like you said, you'll catch yourself and end up basically profiting and paying yourself. That's why a lot of people right now, and you better hurry. We're going to financial news here. You have some 401k loans, jump on them now and pay them off by the end of the year, and you'll actually make yourself some money. Because you're going to pay yourself a 401k, you're paying yourself anyway, but instead of losing, you're actually going to gain. But anyway, the sad thing is it's just, unless there is irrevertible proof, he's always now branded. And I think that part actually sucks. I don't think he cares. But I will go to this. And I said it. I'm like, me and my parents 2 years ago went and watched the Rangers and the Angels. And he had a hell of a game. He hit just a friggin' massive launch of a home run and a couple others. But like, I don't know. I never have got into him. Like, I hope he does well, but like, I don't know. Like when people were talking about him coming to Texas, I wasn't that big on it, especially for how much it was going to cost.
Well, you saw a small sample. If you look at the stats these last few years, you'll see.
No. I'm not talking about his ability. No. I think he's the best player in baseball. I'm just saying he doesn't do it for me. Like there's no aura around him or anything like that, if that makes sense.
I guess it's just he comes over from a different country and just he's a top class athlete at the position, as a hitter. And we've never seen anyone lately that hits and pitches. So it's just
that part's awesome.
So that's it brings a uniqueness to him. He's from Japan. He's a two-way player. So I get it. And MLB is kind of starved for superstars right now. They don't really have those charismatic athletes that they used to have back in the day when we were watching in the 80s and 90s.
I agree 100%, but I guess that's kind of my point. I don't really feel he's very charismatic. Is he?
No, but again, they try to give that mantle to Mike Trout at one point.
And he's boring.
Yeah, and then Bryce Harper, they try to give it to him. He just, I don't know.
Actually, he's perfect, but he is still, everybody, even though he's still emotional, but even though he is nowhere like he was when he was that team phenom, everybody still assumes that he's like that. And so he's not, well liked. Adolis Garcia could be the face of baseball. But again, with baseball, it's really hard because the more colorful you are, the more the old guard, you shouldn't flip your bat, and you probably shouldn't.
And nowadays, it's more encouraged. Like pitchers don't lose their cool. There's not a lot of Vicente Padillas out there. There's going to just beam the next batter if the prior batter hits a home run off them and starts showboating a little bit. Now they're okay. There's all kinds of celebrating. I actually do like that.
Oh, I do too. Go watch some, man. You want to have fun? No. Go watch some the Caribbean League series. They play them every summer, or Venezuela, or Mexico. Go. I'm not joking. I'm joking about the Kenny Powers part. But when Kenny Powers is down in Mexico, that is very how it is. Like, you celebrate. You like big. Like, you will literally talk crap to the dugout as you're walking by with a home run. Benches will clear, and then half of those guys are all on the same team in the MLB, and they're all just having fun. I've tried to explain to older people that the generation today, they don't get offended by trash talk like maybe we used to. You're going to fight. Now, man, I see it at all the high school games. These kids will say some of the things that like embarrass me, and then they're hugging it out after, taking pictures on social media. I think the older guard need to understand that it's just a different world now.
Yeah, it's just a different world. MLB, they need they need those charismatic individuals. They need it showcased. Again, like when Aaron Judge, I think, was chasing 60 home runs.
61, yeah.
61 home runs. There was live coverage for every at-bat. They're just trying to find something to draw more interest to baseball. It's working to an extent. The best thing to me, the best thing that's happened in baseball is the rule change, like the pitch clock.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I don't really care for replays as much, but just shortening the game any way you can. I think that'll be your key to draw more people in.
And I don't even really mind the reviews. I do not like the newest rule where you basically cannot block the bag at all during a steal or any kind of play at the bags. That's going to be, because I don't really like the blocking of the plate rule either. I get it. It's one of those things that they did it thinking it would make catchers safe, but it's actually hurt them because it hurts them when it comes into the play of game. But anyway.
Speaking of.
There you go. Look at, I'm going to start calling you Segway Noe. Let's talk about the big news in the NFL today. Outside Damian Harris retiring. The NFL came out, and I don't know why people are shocked. They've literally, when the NFL talks in the middle of the season, when you see Mike Floria of Pro Football, or if you see, well, not anymore, but if you see Peter King tweet out, rumors are they're going to address certain rule changes, that means that's what they're going to do in the offseason. They're just floating it out now so everybody can get used to it. So we all knew the hip drop thing was going to come. But it's official. The NFL has banned the hip drop tackle. And if you don't know what that is, I meant to get a picture and I forgot. But it's basically, if you're a Cowboy fan, you saw it with Tony Pollard against San Francisco in the playoffs. When a guy is behind a guy and he grabs him by the hips and he kind of twists him and then sits on him. That's what you used to call it. Twist and sit. And you land on their legs and then that brings you down. Oh, my God. Everybody's annoyed. Oh, my God. The world's going to hell. I was really surprised at how many former NFL players actually chimed in against it. But what are your thoughts on it?
It's just another thing to bring safety to the NFL. I'm okay with it. There's different ways you can tackle somebody, especially if you're chasing them and you can grab them by the legs safely. You can just grab them and bring them down to the ground. You don't have to do the hip drop tackle. And the players know it. They're just trying to find, to them, the most efficient way to bring someone down. But it, like you said, like we were talking about during the season, it's caused a lot of injuries, especially this past season. So, yeah, I fully am supportive of safety measures. And if these guys tried harder, Then you go back to Pee Wee when they learned form tackling. There's a lot of basic skills are being lost right now, and that's the thing that really annoys me.
Yeah, you're right about that. And the thing is two things. Rugby outlawed this move a while ago. And if we all know how rugby plays with no helmets, no pads. So if people like that play that sport say, hey, that's too dangerous, then it's probably too dangerous because it's too dangerous. And it's just like the horse collar tackle. Nobody really thought about that until it happened in a national televised game where Roy Williams did it to Donovan or Terrell Owens and broke his leg. And you can make the chase, maybe change the trajectory of that Super Bowl with how T.O. played at maybe 50%. I just wonder how he'd have played that game at 100%. We might be talking about a completely different, wait a minute. That would have helped the Eagles. So Roy Williams made a really good tackle. I don't know. But, everybody bitched about that for 2 or 3 years. Yeah, and as they got used to it and as players got used to it, and I remember a coach told me, rule changes in the NFL aren't for players playing now. It's for players that'll be coming into the league 2 or 3 years from now when they're used to that. And that I agree with. Now, I do agree with, though, dude, it's going to be a crap fest with officials calling it. That's the issue I have with it is, will the officials call it correctly? I don't know if they will.
For the first year, there's going to be a lot of controversy. You already know it. There's going to be a lot of media pundits complaining about that crucial non-call that cost the team the win. So I'm already expecting that this upcoming season. It'll take a few years for everybody to get used to it. AKA a lot of penalties being thrown and a lot of penalties not being thrown.
Yeah.
I like the rule change, but to your point, I agree. It's going to take a few years for it to actually be fully implemented and players stop doing it. Just like with the horse collar tackle, like you brought up with Roy Williams on Terrell Owens. It took a few years, but eventually people stopped doing it for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, you see what in the NFL, maybe 2 or 3 a year, and then probably another 2 or 3 that don't get called that should have been, and maybe 2 or 3 that gets called that shouldn't have been, just to be fair. So maybe 9 plays in the whole totality of the NFL, maybe about the same at college, maybe a little bit more in college just because you got so many more games. But yeah, now everybody sees it and they understand, oh yeah, that's terrible. If it happens to their player, and by the way, 90% of the fans bitching, if it happens to their player this year and it doesn't get called, they'll be the first ones bitching about it. Wouldn't you be like, no, you don't like the penalty, right? So you don't want it to happen, do you? I understand, but still, yeah, I agree. I just think that, I like it. I don't want to say I don't watch the game for hits. I like hard legal hits, but I also like form tackling too. I like to see a defensive end set the edge, and then I love, especially when you see a defensive end stutter step inside like he's going to fake, then sets the edge, then goes after the quarterback. The hitting is awesome. I like that. I don't get any joy of watching somebody hip drop somebody. I never did.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't want to see star players getting knocked out for the year and shortening their career. And some of these players are projected to be Hall of Famers, and big injury like that prevents it. And also, it hurts my fantasy football.
Well, and I don't know if it hurt. I don't know if it hurt the Cowboys in that game. I still think that, yeah, he was doing some good things offensively, but we don't know. But I do think that you could look at this year, and Pollard didn't seem like he had that same explosion. And I'm not saying he won't get it back, but I'm just saying you could tell this year he was still, that game that happened in the playoffs. It's not like he had a full year. He had 9 months to heal. And I was actually shocked though that a lot. Well, I get what the NFLPA said. They came out and basically said what we said, that they're worried that how it will be called. Like, will it be called correctly? I'm fine with that. But man, for you to come out and basically for 50% of your group to say, hey, we don't care if you get hurt. But then, I don't know. That's weird to me that the NFLPA picked a side on this.
Player safety, man.
But that's my point. But they're going against it. They're saying this rule shouldn't be.
Okay.
Yeah, the NFLPA. But again, I understand their reasoning is they're worried that it won't be called correctly. I agree with that, but I still don't think it's a good look for you to come out and in the news and tell 50% of your people, hey, we're not really worried about your safety. we're going to argue about. We're worried about the calls.
Yeah. I mean, this offseason, that'll be dominated by figuring out how to implement that. And then also the proposed special teams change, too. Both for safety.
Well, I think the special teams was more about its safety, but it's also bringing it back, like bringing back the special teams being a part of the game.
Trying to have your cake and eat it, too.
Yeah, and I like the rule, by the way.
Yeah, I do, too. Yeah,
I either want that rule or I like is it the XFL that did it where did you see how they did that? Like it basically was like a line of scrimmage and then the guy kicked and then nobody could move until the returner started.
This is where the NFL got it from.
Okay. So it is basically the same. I know the onside kick, a lot of people don't understand that one. They think that you can't, if they make the rule that you can't onside kick till the fourth. No, you can't get in the old school onside formation where it was overloaded to one side. You can only do that in the fourth and if you're behind. I have no problem with that.
And it's not a surprise kick either. You have to inform the referee that you're doing
it. But you can still do the old school surprise kick where you're lined up in the regular formation. I think that's the thing people don't understand. They think it means completely. But I want to go back to what you showed me right before we started. And I think this ties into what we've been talking about. And that is the replays now are possibly going to look at roughing the passers and other calls like, throwing the ball away, intentional grounding.
Yeah.
I like that.
I like it a lot too. It's going to be a big change, but I do like it because, intentional grounding and roughing the passer are both subjective. But the referee's been erring on the side of caution lately, and a lot of hits on quarterbacks, to me, are not roughing the passer. But again, it's subjective. I would like an independent person to actually look at it. Now, there has to be certain criteria. Obviously, this is just the high-level news. What exactly they're looking for that qualifies for roughing the passer and for intentional grounding, I don't know yet. I'll find out more in the season because every game has an NFL expert, like a referee expert, and they're going to explain bullet point by bullet point what they're looking at.
Yeah. So in theory, couldn't you do that with the hip drop as well? Take it out of the hands of the officials on the ground. Just have a reviewer. If it happens, boom, you hit the buzzer.
I just thought of this now. I mean, you probably were leaning or trying to segue to that, but they could do this for everything. Pass interference.
Yeah, I think there's if you get only the overhead guys looking at it, then you go, okay, so why? And this could be why are there officials on the field at all? Like, just have a ref, and he just makes sure first down and all that. Everything else is done up at top. Put a chip in the ball. Finally, put a friggin' chip in the ball, which we could do, and it could literally tell us GPS did it cross the line or not. And I get that they're not wanting to do that because they want to kind of keep that suspense and that human error. And I'm fine with that. But everybody keeps talking about officials. I could see a day where the NFL just goes, hey, everything's up in the sky. We've got one official, maybe two, to help spot the ball. Call some obvious. Well, I don't even know. Hell, don't even have to call obvious. Let everything be done upstairs.
Man, that would be. I mean, I'm not sure how many years down the road that would happen, but that would be a game changer on a whole new level. That would, man.
Think about, though, how fun this would be. So let's say you have the same kind of rule that you do right now where, if the play gets snapped before the flag is thrown or anything, the play is good. Think how fast all offenses would just start going. Unless they thought the penalty was going to be against defense. Anything else, just go. We don't want to hold. We don't want we don't want anything that might not get. Just go. that would make football become a NASCAR. I mean, Sam Weiss would be coming out of the grave going, "This is how I saw football." Because people don't remember, Sam Weiss was really the first guy that truly did the whole. Well, why don't we just run the 2-minute offense all the time? But yeah, I don't know. This is the part of the season I think also we're all just getting ready for football because man, we will. I mean, everybody's getting their butt hurt about the hip drop. And it's like, you won't even remember this in 3 months.
It hasn't even been.
I'll say until your team gets a bad call on a hip drop, everybody's gonna remember it then.
I'll remember every bullet point if it happens against the Cowboys. Now, yeah, Sam White, that's a good one. Yeah, it's funny like how that was imitated by the Bills and then like almost every other team, the Houston Oilers. Yeah, man, that would you would need an Olympic level referee, athlete to be a referee essentially.
And Hockey League, they're gonna clone him.
Eddie Guns, man, you need him, but with like a Kenyan marathon runner's lungs. Like you just need like basically the $6 million man, Steve Austin. You just need to go ahead, just build him in a lab and have him out there on the field because they're going to have to do a lot.
No. I just want to see a team of them play each other. Can we just now have a ref league? How about this though? How about you still have all the officials, but instead of actually throwing a flag, they hit a button. If they see what they think is holding, goes up to the sky. Sky looks at it. So that way, instead of calling everything, which would literally slow the game down because you're going to have there's going to be so much stuff where the official would be or the guy would, I need to see it again. So let me that's what happened that first year when college had reviews, and it just like it would be 1st and 10, and it would be a 1-yard throw, and they would stop and they'd review if his feet were in. And finally, college football said, okay, let's try to make it important plays, not every play. So how about you still have all the officials, but they just hit a button. I saw a hold. And then the eye in the sky, yep, we saw a hold. All right, flag. I think that could actually work. And you'd keep people on the field still watching at an eye level too. Because some things you can only see at an eye level. The eye in the sky will miss things at 3 dimensions because it's just the way it looks.
I'm okay with more stuff going up to the booth, but I want a time limit. Like if they can't see anything discernible after 10 to 20 seconds, whatever the time is, like that seems reasonable, then you just call it. Okay, so for example, holding, someone challenges it. Let's just say holding can be challenged in the booth. It goes up to the booth. It takes them more than 10 seconds to come to a decision. The ruling on the field would stand. So there's like a timer. If it goes off, ruling on the field stands no matter what. I would be okay with that because it wouldn't slow the game as much.
Well, and that would work because they're already looking at every review anyway. So they're already, even before the challenge, I guarantee you they'd be like, oh, we're about to get a challenge. Beep, challenge. All right, we've got it, hold and go. And you don't have to have the, I get why they put the official, the head referee under the hood. I get that because when people, again, age, a lot of people don't realize that instant replay was tried first, failed. It failed because the eye in the sky people were the only ones that made the call. Kind of like how baseball is now. Here's the difference. We have HD. We have way much better equipment than we did in 1987. Those guys were literally trying to make a call on a replay on a small-ass TV. And I know this because when I broadcast high school football games up at Texas Stadium, where we sat was right next to what the replay booth was. And it was a really cool security guard. He passed away this past year, rest in peace. But he would let us in, and we went and looked. And they looked at, my little TV I have for my Nintendo and all that? It was that big. In 1987, they're trying to make replay calls on that non-HD. That's why there were so many bad calls. Now, I can't explain why some of the bad calls happen now, but in today's world, so much better technology. Stop having the ref go under the hood. Just let the guy in the sky make the call. Every other sport does it that way, except for hockey. I think hockey kind of does it both. On goals and stuff, it goes to Toronto or New York. I think it's Toronto. But on other things, the official will go and look. So maybe we get that little hybrid like that would work.
Well, when you brought up the old security guard that passed away, it reminded me of our look back we did over the weekend on the Giants and all the people we kept saying RIP, RIP, RIP. Honestly, if it doesn't slow down the game, because I know a lot of offensive-minded coaches are going to complain that the rhythm of the game is the rhythm for their offense is being hampered by these new rule changes.
Yeah.
As long as the entertainment aspect is there, I don't see it being a problem. But yeah, I could see that being the natural progression. I just don't because I know I was a lineman a long time ago, back in my high school days, but even I knew back then there's holding on every play.
Yeah.
So do you just not think about the holding that was happening on the far side of the field because it had nothing to do with what happened on where the play was at? I mean, at some point, if you just keep nitpicking and nitpicking, it could get bad.
Well, and again, I do see the belief of, at some point reviews are they're killing, as you said, the entertainment. And that's, no matter what we think, that's always going to be the biggest part.
Yep.
Is the entertainment. And if the game is not exciting enough, and I'm not stupid to not think that there was people in that room when they made the rule change saying, because offense was down last year, folks. A lot of it's probably because so many quarterbacks got hurt, but every year so many quarterbacks got hurt. But even in general, we talked about, you and I were calling this year before. We were literally saying, folks, watch this. Defenses are figuring it out. We're going, and that's why you and I both feel that. And you see that secretly big running back free agency that actually happened because people are realizing defenses are shelling out, playing all their safeties 5 yards and bailing as soon as the ball snapped because they don't want to get beat over deep. So how do you contend that? Better tight ends, better running backs. But you can't tell me there wasn't people in that room with the owner saying, hey, you remember offense was down today. And that hip drop tackle, man, if Pollard against San Francisco 2 years ago, if that guy doesn't do that, Pollard might have scored. That kind of thing. So let's not be stupid and think some of it isn't because they're wanting to keep the entertainment factor high, because there was a little bit of a slippage this year.
I think free agency kind of tells you the direction of football each year.
Good point. Great point right there.
You saw the demand for not linebackers, but off-ball linebackers, but mostly interior offensive linemen, which is the new term for guards and centers, and running backs. Running backs are the all-time high position. They got paid this season. They didn't get paid last season. They were getting paid this season. I think teams are starting to see the demand and the value of running backs to take advantage of defenses nowadays that don't have the muscle up front to
the Dallas Cowboys defense.
Yeah. And you saw with the Cowboys, they got rid of a lot of those players. And, with the Titans, I'm kind of surprised. Their kind of defense is probably going to be what's best for a lot of teams going forward. They can stuff the run. I had Jeffrey Simmons. He's a run-stuffing defensive tackle. I love the way he plays. And Danico Autry. But Autry left recently. I think he went to – I want to say he went to the Texans, but I can't remember. But, yeah, that'll be the new trend, run-stuffing defenses. That'll be – well, this season is going to prove the point that it's valuable because there's going to be a lot of running backs that get over 1,300 yards as opposed to just over 1,000. This was kind of a weak – this 2023 was kind of a weak year for running backs. There was only a handful that even got to over 1,000, and really just very minor. McCaffrey was leagues and above better statistically than everybody else.
Yeah, I gotta say this. My dad. Thanks for listening, Dad. I actually like his idea. Put a penalty box like in hockey.
Oh, okay.
So your left tackle has a hold.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to sit out the rest of the drive.
Then that goes back to the sense that you got to have expanded rosters if you're going to do that.
No. Just like in hockey.
Oh, no.
He goes out for the drive.
You cannot do that.
Why? Now, he said 2-minute penalty box, and I'm like, screw it. Go for a whole – you want to bet that penalties don't get cut down? I didn't even bring up, by the way, the Giant. By the way, we're talking about that again. Check that out on YouTube. Holy crap, the amount of people that have already watched that. We've hit over 12,000 views on that video alone. I think the best we did last year on our look pass was our look back was like 9,000 on the last video. So we appreciate that growth again. Check that out at L4 Media on YouTube. But so one of the things about that 86 team, and Dad will know this one, there was a tackle that was basically the problem and got Danny White killed. His name was Phil Posderick. And he became known as Penalty Posderick. Felt really bad. He was just like Flozell Adams. A really good tackle, who just had an issue with a hold every 3 or 4 times a game, but he was good enough that it lasted. But I totally forgot to bring that up. But no, that would be, I mean, it's not going to happen, but that would be kind of fun. Your left tackle gets a hold. He's got to go sit out for the rest of the drive.
Until it happens to your team.
Oh, no, it would happen. But I'm telling you, I guarantee you. Now, quarterbacks would be killed more because the tackle would be like, well, I'd just rather him get sacked than have a penalty. But you got to admit, that'd be kind of fun. Because here's the funny thing about it in hockey, and I know hockey and football is completely different, but the funny thing about it in hockey is the power play helps, but it's like hitting in baseball. It's well below. I mean, 20% power play, and dude, you're probably top 10 in the league in scoring and power play scoring. Like 20% is kind of that level. I've always thought if a team could ever figure out how to be 60%, they might go unbeaten that year.
Yeah, because every team goes on a power play. So yeah, if you can get over half of you convert half the times or over half.
The 3-point, is it not? The 3-point eventually became where a lot of teams, man, are almost hitting it at 46, 47% at times.
I'm surprised they haven't expanded the 3-point. I don't think you really can any further than what it is, because it would make it a weird shape at the arch. But
yeah,
just having like 4-point circles somewhere on the court. Or, they're just like, if you shoot it from right at this particular circle and you make it, you get 4 points.
Dude, I don't know why, but that brought up a nostalgic moment for me. One of my favorite basketball players in the late 90s was Glenn Rice.
Oh, I love Glenn Rice. Silky smooth.
I was working in Longview at an athletic club, and I've told you about that before. And my college roommate, Jamie, he's probably listening. We played basketball all the time, and Glenn Rice was my favorite. He kind of took what Reggie Miller did and ran with it. Because, Reggie Miller had that moment. And that's always going to be a fun talk one day, eventually, whenever we have a slow moment in these news cycles. How really good was Reggie Miller? Because I see both sides of that. Same thing with Glenn Rice. But, man, just Glenn Rice in the corner. There's nothing prettier than that, man.
With basketball, 3-point line wasn't really a thing up until about 79, 80.
Yep. Well, in the NBA. ABA had already had it. College didn't get it till 84, 85, something like that.
It was around the time. It had to have been like mid to late 80s, like you were saying. Because I remember like Indiana winning the 87 championship, and I almost want to say they didn't have a 3-point line, or maybe that was the first year.
86. I knew it was something like that because Dale Brown at LSU took good advantage of that. And almost
86, 87 season. Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You and I have probably forgotten more about sports than most people know.
And that's not even a compliment, sadly.
It's just but yeah, it's like
my fiance's like, do you know when my birthday is? I'm like, is it close to Roger Staubach's? Because if it's not, probably not. But no. And again, that was the whole joke about this show. We were joking at the beginning of the show. We want to be able to just have these type of meandering conversations, and it's just been really hard. And we're kind of not talking the NFL free agency, but to be honest with you, I'm kind of tired of it. And not because not what Dallas is doing or not doing. It just at some point you just kind of get. It's fun for like the first 3 days, and then it's just a lot.
Well, because most of the good players are gone after the first few days. But, this one was kind of interesting just because there was a couple of odd trades that happened. One because a team overvalued their player, and another because a team also overvalued money-wise their player. So, with Russell Wilson getting traded to the Steelers, he was overvalued in price. He just can't throw over the middle. So I'm not sure why he went to the Steelers, because their offensive coordinator is Arthur Smith, former Falcon coach, former Tennessee Titan offensive coordinator. And a lot of his offense, the passing part, is predicated over middle of the defense throwing.
Wait. You don't like Russell Wilson to the Steelers?
I don't see it being a fit. I see him being a starter to begin the season. I don't see him going past week 5 or 6.
When I think of Russell Wilson, that's literally what I think of. Tight end.
Again, if it wasn't Arthur Smith as offensive coordinator, unless something changes,
I see what you mean.
He would fit that Steeler offense.
Do you see
if Matt Canada was actually the offensive coordinator, believe it or not?
Do you think that Pittsburgh, and I know if they don't already have Russell Wilson, the price is probably higher. But do you think after they got Fields, they kind of went, "Oh shit, that gummit"? Because I agree. Look, I'm not gonna say Fields got screwed. I mean, at the end of the day, he still hasn't really showed that he can be what I think he can be. I think he was showing it. I think Chicago will be perfectly happy with Caleb Williams. I have changed my view on Caleb Williams. I thought he was overrated, all that stuff. Kind of bought into the supposed attitude. Then I started actually reading, and I'm a big, and you are too, teammates tell you what they think of guys. No jokes or not, one of our favorite movies, Draft Day, it's literally said, how odd is it that a guy whose birthday, the quarterback of a team, his 21st birthday, nobody shows up for his birthday party. That tells you what kind of teammate they are. And by all accounts, man, everybody loves Caleb Williams. So I've turned on him. I think he's going to fit. So I don't think Chicago made a bad decision, but I think they made a decision that it would have been awesome if you'd have got Marvin Harrison Jr., DJ Moore, Justin Fields, Cole Kmet. And then they also had another pick.
Keenan Allen.
Oh my God. Well, do you make that trade? Oh man, boy, folks don't understand Keenan Allen. That dude, again, if he stays healthy, he's going to miss 3 or 4 games, but man, he is still, even at 30, I think 2, he is still a catch machine.
Dude, let me tell you something. I thought they were going to keep Fields based off what they did. The only flaws to that team was the line play on both sides. They addressed one last offseason by trading, or not last offseason, during the season last year by trading for Montez Sweat. This offseason, they were heavy on offensive lineman sign. They got Ryan Bates, Jake Curhan, Matt Pryor, and then Coleman Shelton at center. At worst, those are great depth hires. And they got Gerald Everett to be a complement to Cole Kmet. They got DeAndre Swift. I'm like, everything they've done is telling me they're trying to get all the help Justin Fields could possibly have. And that team is a quarterback ready. Just put a capable quarterback there, and they're good to go. I guess they feel that it is Caleb Williams, but Washington wants him more than Chicago does. So I'm wondering if they're just trying to increase the value for that number 1 pick so they can do a trade with Washington to get maybe 2 first-round picks or more first-round picks.
And go with Daniels or Maye.
Because they can just split the picks, and then Washington will give them something else.
I mean, Ryan Poles, the GM, I was reading an article today talking about the Justin Fields trade, and he was talking it up. Basically, they're taking Caleb Williams. Like, I don't even think. By the way, we're doing a live show for the draft this year 2. I don't even think we'll get it. The pick will be done in the first 2 minutes. He literally is like, yeah, we've talked to all his teammates. I'm like, so I like your idea, and I love that. I think it'd be a great little curve, but it ain't happening.
Let me tell you something, buddy.
Whoa, don't threaten me.
Let me tell you something, brother.
Brother.
Like Ted DiBiase always said, everybody's got a price.
Yeah, I don't. Man, if it was Daniel Snyder's, if it was Daniel Snyder, I would agree with you, but I don't see this.
I'm telling you. Offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury. He is going to be in Dan Quinn's ear. He is going to talk to the owner Josh. Yes,
Dan Quinn.
He's going to talk to owner Josh Harris.
They're trading 5 first-round picks for Caleb Williams.
So Ricky Williams 2.0.
No. They'll trade them all and then draft an offense or defensive tackle. All Dan Quinn has heard this year was, "Hey, your run game sucks.
Yeah.
Or run defense sucks." I still don't like that Dan Quinn, and I'm glad he's gone with Dallas. And it's not like I hated him. I just there was so much hubris last year in using safeties at linebackers, and literally every game you realizing, well, if Dallas wasn't already up 21-0, that could be an issue. And when great linebackers were being released on the cheap, they weren't even trying. Like, bring the dude in, just bring him in and see what he does. And they weren't doing that. That's that hubris. And that's where Jerry Jones, a lot of people think Jerry Jones gets into it too much. But I've always read that people say that really know, and I've talked to people that really know that, no, it's the exact opposite. He relies too much on his coaches sometimes. He relies too much on that. So I don't know. But anyway, I want to bring in now the betting side of L4 Media. We're going to be investigating all of his checks and money and all that we keep sending him because it keeps disappearing. But Ryan Fox, first off, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
We're a little saucy talking football and baseball. So what were your thoughts on today's big news?
Oh, which news you're referring to exactly?
Oh, that little betting scandal that's going on in LA.
Yeah, that Shohei thing. Yeah, it's kind of a crazy deal, man. I'm with you though. I don't think Shohei himself directly betted on anything. It's kind of a strange ordeal, because he was kind of, when he addressed the media today, he was kind of like, emotionless in his answer.
I mean, isn't that him?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, man. Sports betting overall, I think, is kind of a controversial topic, and but it's kind of weird though. I'm not sure why someone would do that, especially as translator, because I feel like he makes good money. But then again, I don't know all the details about the situation, but sports betting itself is such a controversial topic. I think anything pertaining to it just ends up being controversial.
Are you a bettor?
I'm not.
Okay, Noe, are you a bettor?
I do fantasy football. That's about it.
Yeah, fantasy football.
But you don't even do like FanDuel like I do.
No.
Mm.
All right. I do some very light betting. I'm a money line guy. I don't care how great you know the sport. You cannot guess 7 points, 6 points, 5. That's just so I like money line. I bet. No, he knows this. I will bet $5 on like every team wins on the money line, and if I win, it's like $100,000. It'll never happen.
Wow.
I bet like that. Now this year, I did start making some more what I thought was, for sure bets, and I did really good. And again, Interno, you've seen that when I bet, like I have a really good account going right now. I do FanDuel for fantasy, just kind of keep me going. I've never won big there. I think I've won, but I win every week. And I don't think a lot of people understand that fantasy football for money is betting. I mean, it's just a different form of betting. But in fact, you could say it's the most pure betting because you're not betting on a team. You're betting on an individual. It's like a horse race.
Yeah, basically. That's a good way of putting it, horse racing.
Yeah, I got like 29 teams in my head running in a Kentucky Derby. I'm about to drink the coverage tonight, folks.
What are y'all drinking tonight?
Oh, yeah. I'm drinking vodka. He's drinking some foo-foo whiskey. What are you drinking?
I got some Kinsen plum wine.
Holy crap, dude. I thought he'd be like bringing Nestle Quick to the table. He's bringing beer and wine. Way to go, brother.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk a little baseball. Baseball season, well, technically has already started. By the way, I don't like that. I don't like the Dodgers and San Diego. They go to Korea, they play 2 games that count, but then they come back and they're playing exhibition games now until the season starts. I'm fine with going all over the world. The NFL just do it on the same week that the same day the season starts. I don't understand why that has to be different.
I didn't realize those games counted towards their actual in-season record. Wow.
Yeah, both teams are 1-1, and they've done this now for 5 or 6 years. Where because a couple years ago it was over in Japan, and a couple years ago before that, I think they started in Mexico. And again, I'm fine with all that, but just put it on the same day. Why does it have to be?
You can't.
Why?
Can't because of where it's located and the flights.
Just give them those days off to come back.
They need more than 1 day off.
Well, give them more than 1 day.
But that's not how current baseball works.
Well, but okay, so like Texas will start on Thursday, then they have Friday off, and then they'll start on Saturday and Sunday. So have it they play 2 games. So have it like this. So I'll give you Wednesday. Start it on Wednesday. 1 game on Wednesday, 1 game on Thursday. Then those 2 teams are off until Monday. And they start right back into their next series. And that is, dude, they're back they're back playing an exhibition. So obviously they're not tired or anything. I mean, they're back. They're going to play 2 none of them took days off.
Maybe Wednesday to Friday.
That's what I'm saying. Wednesday, we'll just do 2 games. Wednesday, Thursday, fly Friday. You're off Saturday, Sunday. You start back to regular. You're back into it on Monday.
I'm going to have to think on that one because I know with the flight, it just puts them at a disadvantage compared to every other team. They're going to need more days off. They're going to have basically 3-game series for the first month just to get back into.
But again, they're back doing exhibition games. And I know that the Dodgers and the Padres won't They won't play their starters for 90% of that. But if they're so worried about the rest, why did they have them go play 2 games and then come back and they're playing exhibition games until the season starts on Thursday? That's my point. I agree with you. I'm just saying, do it Wednesday, Thursday, 2 games, you're off. Anyway, but let's go back to Texas because that's what we cover. By the way, I put that up on the thing, Texas right there. Texas has grown up, man. We used to be like the 2 p.m. start, 6 p.m., national TV. The Chicago Cubs. I mean, there's going to be a lot of the American baseball fandom watching this game. I'm excited. I think maybe it's just buying into it a little bit more, but I'm getting more positive about where I think the Rangers are going to be this year. I've been underrating that lineup. Yeah,
and then the other thing that's really surprised me is how the pitching is done. You look at the young guys that's kind of been in their system for a while. For example, Jake Latz.
Yep.
He had 6 appearances throughout spring, had a sub-3 ERA. Then he started the game tonight, the exhibition game that they're currently playing against the Red Sox, and he pitched a 1-2-3 inning. So I think he's maybe not exactly solidified, but I think he's made a fantastic case for securing a spot in the bullpen to start the season off. But my biggest question is what they're going to do with Michael Lorenzen, the guy they signed in free agency that played for the Phillies last year.
Yeah.
I think what they're aiming towards is starting him in AAA, and give him 1 start in AAA, because I think he had some injury problems last year. He was 4-2 with like a 5.8 ERA. I think a lot of that was with injuries as well. So I'm anxious to see what they do with him, because he could end up being at least a temporary placeholder in that starting rotation until at least a Max Scherzer or Jacob deGrom comes back, because we don't know when that's going to be.
Okay, but
happens. Sorry, go ahead.
How's sure though? I mean, especially deGrom. I mean, jokes aside, he literally pitched 1 start and he was hurt the rest of the time. Even Max Scherzer. So I'm becoming more around on they're going to be good this year. I never thought they were going to be bad, but I do think this is going to be very reminiscent of the Rangers that I grew up loving. A lot of runs given up. There's going to be a lot of 9-8 games this year, and I'm fine with that. I think, honestly, and we talked a little bit about this a couple weeks ago when you're on, the Rangers took a World Series that they shouldn't have. They got hot. The arms that had struggled all year got hot. All that happened, and that's great. And it actually works for Texas because they got that World Series we've all been working on. Now they can truly build around the team, and they can let Leiter and they can let Rockwell, all them at the rocker down it and see if they're going to finally develop. And if they do, great. And if not, let's start over. And because DeGrom's contract will be off the books in 2 years, Scherzer's will be off after this year. And so I think that World Series bought this front office a lot of time to kind of figure things out as they go, Noe.
Yeah, I could definitely see this going the same route that what happened in Kansas City, where they won in 2015 and then they kind of regressed back to the norm of being 500 for the next couple of years. But I don't see them falling completely off like the Royals did. That Royal team, or that Royal era, they had built up a good farm system, and they really technically had a good 3-year period between 2013 and 2015. But they were all getting to where they were in the late 20s, early 30s, so they were about to fall off anyway. I don't see these Rangers doing it. I think they have good veteran leaders at the right positions, and they have good talent. And we went to that AA game, I think, in Frisco. Last year or two. We saw Leiter. I mean, he still looked young and not ready, but you could see the potential there. So I'm kind of curious to see how long it will take him to get to the majors on a permanent basis. But yeah, I'm very excited about the future. I'm just happy they won a World Series at all. I didn't think they would win a World Series ever. I thought the Cowboys would win a Super Bowl before that happened, but I'm happy. So.
Well, and there is a world where them winning the World Series also hurts long-term plans because, the owners, again, let's remember, the only reason they did all this was they built a new stadium and nobody was coming. Yeah. And they thought that the stadium would bring the people, and we're like, yeah, we don't even like the stadium. So you got to have a good team. And then there is a world where them winning too early actually hurts the long term. I don't think so. I think because we saw last year, I think Chris Young is really good being a pitcher, knowing that you can take certain arms that might not be dominating, but in certain runs. I also don't think Texas has been into Jordan Montgomery as much as people think, because if you're Texas, you cannot be paying $100 million for a guy that he did really good for half a year. You've got to look at the history of him. He's really solid, but he is not $100 million top of the rotation arm.
So I got a question for both of y'all.
Right.
Where does Jordan Montgomery land in 2024?
Yankees.
What I was thinking was, because I was going to ask you guys the same thing almost, but kind of pose it differently. What if we're looking at May and Montgomery still hasn't been picked up, and that might drop his value?
Oh, yeah.
And a possibility to where they can start negotiations again and have to take a little less because he's been sitting, and that brings a comeback to the Rangers. What do you guys think the possibility of that is?
I think it's possible, but I did read that he was trying to make a decision this week.
That would be the best case scenario for the Rangers. I would love that.
I would too.
But I'm kind of worried that his value will go up instead of down.
Well, I mean, the longer he sits, his value will go down. I mean, that's just, I mean, unless you talk about, the Giants, anybody that has some solid pitching, but one injury away from devastation, unless somebody just panics, let's say Blake Snell, who just signed for the Giants, let's say he goes 8 starts and then his arm gets hurt. I could see an emergency there. But yeah, I think the longer in general, usually, and longer the game or the season goes on, the less the player is going to make. I will contend though. I just think as Ranger fans, we've got to remember some really great things happen from people that hadn't normally done those things. Accept that, but don't try to oversign those guys. Because again, I'm fine with Jordan Montgomery if you're talking about a 4th starter and, at a good price. But if you're paying him ace money, he is not an ace. His career has not shown that he's an ace. And I mean, let's remember, he also lost the World Series start. It's not like he did a Colby Lewis, which I still will contend is still the greatest Ranger postseason history pitcher. Go look at what he did because of what he did in the regular season. And then he would just become tough as nails. But, Jordan was good. But, I mean, Nathan Eovaldi was better.
I agree. And I think he's earned that opening day start, no question about it. I think he's the only pitcher in MLB history in the playoffs last season to win 5 starts in an entire postseason run, the first pitcher to ever do that. Not the first pitcher to do it ever, but with 5 starts doing that. So he's earned that as well. He's earned his spot as the ace of this team. But with the Rangers, I think they're still missing that number 2 guy for a 1-2 punch. Because like you said before, with Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom, there's no guarantee that they're going to be healthy for most of the year. And even if they are, how long will that last?
Yeah.
So I think losing a guy like Montgomery, definitely hurts that. But I think it'll end up just being one of those situations to where they're going to let the young guys develop. And if it's not getting to the point in the rotation that they expected to during the All-Star break, I could see them doing a similar move that they did getting Jordan Montgomery and Chris Stratton and those guys.
Yeah.
Get someone at the All-Star break.
Well, and again, I also don't see and I don't really have a problem with this as long as they're competitive. I don't have a problem with them taking the step back and trying to see if Leiter and Rocker and that group, and if Bradford, who's probably going to end up in camp or on the team to start, how they are as starters. Take a step back. Hey, win 85 games, contend for the wild card. You don't make it, we're good. That's the great thing about having Seager and Simeon locked down. Like you've literally got your foundation there. Then you got Jordan Hane. And I have a funny feeling that if Garcia starts off strong this year, I wouldn't be shocked to see the Rangers do something, in the middle of the year, 3 years, $65 million type of deal for Garcia. And so even if the Rangers take a step back, and by the way, it is extremely hard to win back-to-back World Series in baseball. It's been done only a few times. And the last time was like when Ryan was in diapers. And I'm not even joking about that. Like you literally, you're in diapers till 3 years ago. We won't talk about that right now. But like, this is not like everybody I think Dallas Fort Worth fans think football wise. We won 1, so let's go win 3, dude. If that happened, the Texas Rangers would go from the plucky little franchise up to one of the top franchises ever in the history of baseball.
In the history.
If they won 3 in a row, Noe?
Oh yeah.
I mean, if they won 3 in a row, or even 2, like I think 2 in a row has been done like 25 times, some weird, really small number.
Yeah, baseball's been played since the 1880s.
Yes, I mean, if they win back-to-back World Series, so think about it like this: the Giants won 1 every other year, and I think you would think of those for that run kind of a dynasty, or at least one of the best team of that era. So if the Rangers win 2 in a row, and then let's say they win 3 out of 6. Yeah, and all of that's actually possible now. This isn't like pipe dreams. Like the Rangers are good enough, and they should be built for the long term enough that they should be a contender. I mean, even just as much as the Astros have done it, and all the talk about the Astros, give them credit. They have been relevant for 7 years now, and they're still going to be relevant. Would it shock anybody if the Astros win the World Series this year?
No, it wouldn't be, because they've been to the LCS 7-8 years in a row.
It took a game, as great as it was. It took a Game 7 after it looked like the Rangers had collapsed to pull that one off.
I still love that the Astros lost the same way they lost to the Washington Nationals. They could not win a home game. Went to 7. They played all season to get the home field advantage, and it ended up biting them in the butt.
So one of my most liked Facebook posts, I'm not kidding, probably of all time, was a couple weeks ago. MLB showed a picture of, I think it was Altuve hitting a home run at home. And they said something about there's nothing like a home field for the Astros. And I responded basically like Ranger fans agree. And last I checked, it was like at 3,000 likes because the Astros are not a great home team. Oh no, it was their home fans are like no other. And I'm like, well, yeah, us Ranger fans agree. Because go back and look in the stands when the Rangers are doing something in Game 7, and look how many blue and red jerseys and cheering there are. And I just saw this the other day because Rangers YouTube is doing Ranger Rewind, and it was absolutely amazing how many Ranger fans. My dad just asked the pitching lineup. Is that for tonight, Noe, or for starting game?
For Thursday. For starting.
For Thursday, it's Justin Steele for the Cubs versus Nathan Eovaldi. Even though that Bruce Bochy has said he's not really going with an ace, Eovaldi earned the start. And I'm like you, Ryan, I think that's easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And another point you were saying about the Astro fans and the Rangers being there, I have a particular memory of Game 6 whenever Adolis Garcia came up for his 5th at-bat. He was 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts. Then they were all raining boos on him. And then he hit that grand slam. They circled the bases. And as soon as you come up and you see, I think it was Evan Carter coming up to the plate, all the seats behind home plate, empty, all gone. They all dipped right after that. That was awesome.
That's the best feeling.
It really is.
I mean, let's be honest. Dare we say the Texas Rangers and the Houston Astros are the best rivalry going in baseball going into 2024?
Oh, man, over the Yankees and Red Sox.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm talking about for just this year. I'm not talking about historically. I mean, what are the Yankees? I mean, the Yankees are supposed to contend. The Red Sox are You're literally talking about, at least on paper, the Astros and Rangers both should contend. Yeah. And again, it's that perfect harmony of the Astros won the division, the Rangers won the World Series. So both teams at least have something on each other, which is why we talked a couple weeks ago. I think Seattle's just sitting back there going, y'all eat each other. We're gonna slide by. Y'all figure yourselves out, because everybody, I have got people that I didn't even know that I love baseball asking me about the Rangers and Astros. Not quite as stupid as Noe knows where I'm about to go. I hate people that when they find out you work in sports ask stupid questions like, hey, do you think Dallas and Washington will play in the Super Bowl this year? And that actually happened once, and it bothers me. But these people are at least smart. Like, what do you think of the Astros Rangers? And it really is like, and it's sad because I grew up an Astro fan, but like, that's the one team now that I will admit, like, I don't like to lose to.
And it's not really, well, to me, It's not really the team.
Exactly.
It's more the fans that are
It's
annoying
not the
me.
fans in our sports rehab page. But no, I'm serious. Where we're at's a bunch of Houston side. I mean, in fact, we're the minority. I know how you feel, Noe. I know your struggle, Noe. I now know your struggle, buddy. But being the minority, but yeah, I mean, it's a lot of Houston people, and yeah, they're annoying. But you and I are talking about the Houston fan that just, for whatever reason, this hate for Dallas just encompasses everything they do. And at times, that's when I go, because I'm a part of some Houston Astros message on Facebook. Man, they're always looking at what and we're talking about even when Texas was bad.
Yeah, I don't get the hate. I don't. So from you and my perspective, maybe you too, Ryan. I don't see why they hate DFW in general. I don't think I have expressed hate. I used to grow up. I love the Rockets. I love the Houston Arrows. For all we, it's so for me, I don't get it. I've heard it's like an inferiority thing. I think we're like the city slickers compared to them, but I'm like, it's Houston. They're not city slickers.
Well,
so,
can I ask you something internally?
All right.
You and I have started researching for next month's Outdrank the coverage of look backs. And what is one of the honorable mentions for the Dallas Cowboys in a special show?
Houston Oilers.
And the reason is, and this is where I have that perspective of being old enough to remember, but also being from not of either area, but having family in both. Being, I was a Houston Oilers fan growing up. Dallas and the America's team, and then the show Dallas is what literally created this whole thing. That's what created this idea that, because, I mean, and you and I'll talk about that 79 win for the Oilers over the Cowboys in that epic Thanksgiving Day game. If you were to rank the games, it's probably, that's another show for us, top 5 Thanksgiving Cowboy games. That's definitely one of them. I barely remember the game, but I just remember how exciting it was. And I remember my family from Houston area talking about it months and months later. And so that's where it all started. And from that moment on, man, it's just been, and then you go into the 90s and you had Houston Oilers almost there, and yet Dallas, just like it was in that late 70s, that 79 team again, losing to the Steelers, probably getting screwed. It wouldn't have won or lost the game, but it would have made the game closer, getting screwed by the non-call on for future Cowboy Mike Renfro, who,
Anyway. A lot of people say that if it went the other way, the momentum would have swung to the Oilers side. And then whoever came out of the AFC was going to beat that Ram team.
Yeah, because and that's another thing when we talk about the Honor Mitchell, that Jack Youngblood game. But yeah, it started there and it's just continued. And it's funny because I'm on both sides of it, because I always, and this, Noe, I always say if I were to rank my top 5 sports of all teams, I would say that the 86 Astros is one of my top 3 teams as a fan, because I was a kid. It was Mike Scott, Nolan Ryan, Bob Nepper, Jose Cruz, Kevin Bass, Billy Hatcher, Bill Dorn. I literally sent you the video when I was at this game, and it's when Kevin Bass had a grand slam against the Cubs in 1988. And so I get both sides of it, but yeah, it's sometimes just with Houston fans, it's like, dude, back off. By the way, on Mark the Sport says not more annoying than Cowboy fans. So I got to say this real quick. Go ahead. I used to defend Cowboy fans. I would defend them to we talk about it. Until I joined all these Facebook Cowboy pages so I can help promote the show. Dude, we have the worst fandom. It's not even close.
So you and I don't surround ourselves around those fans. I didn't realize this until I went to a bar to watch the Cowboy game on Sunday, which I promised myself I would never do, but I did to entertain good friends of mine. So I went, saw some Cowboy fans right across the bar, waved, said hi, go Cowboys. And they proceeded for the next 3 hours to ruin a blowout win for the Cowboys for me. They were playing the Bears. I think it was last season. It was a blowout win for the Cowboys. It was one of those games where Dan Quinn.
2 years ago, that was the Micah Parsons picked up the Justin Fields.
Yes, it was that same game. So
they wore the orange helmets.
Yes. So I was there sitting, and I couldn't even enjoy the game. I was so angry because I'm just trying. Okay, it's a blowout. Let me just watch the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Let me see some of these backups trying to shine. Yeah, but these fans, they were cheering a blowout. It was almost as bad as when we went to Frisco Bar and Grill.
I knew it was
the
going.
49er fans were doing the whole first down chant.
Yeah.
Even when they were up big on the Cardinals.
Oh.
I'm like, the game's over. Just enjoy the rest of the game. Ride it out. And to me, that showed me what everybody is complaining about. You and I are not those fans.
No, but I do want to say this. So on Mark, the Sports Pilot's Mark Henry, check his shows out. He does some great shows.
Wait, Olympic?
No, but that
powerlifter Mark Henry?
Sadly, it's not. Even though that used to be, when me and him hosted a Houston high school show, that would be the entrance music for him.
Former WWE champion Mark Henry?
He says that he complains that the fans say that they're winning the Super Bowl every year. Okay, so I guess I'm going to be different on that. I don't understand why people, yes, I know that they won't win the Super Bowl every year, but I don't understand knocking the optimism of, that's what sports is supposed to be. It literally is hope springs eternal. So I don't get that argument. Like, okay, yeah, you want me to think, I hope my team goes 6-10 or 6-11.
It must be how those particular Cowboy fans say.
Oh no, they're obnoxious, and I get that. But all fans are obnoxious. That's part of the fun of it.
Well, and going back, because we did season 1 of Look Back, when we did last season of the 5 Super Bowls for the Cowboys. Those late 60, early 70 teams, they were next year's champions.
Yep.
So I'm pretty sure those fans back then were saying, we're winning the Super Bowl this year. It's 100%. It's going to happen. So that could have been the genesis of it, and it just kind of carried forward after 95, where it was like, oh well, we still have a team. Let's draft Shante Carver. Next year's champs.
Kavika Pittman. Dwayne run over people. Goodrich. Ryan's like, what are you talking about?
No, it's because I've maybe seen 2 wild card wins in my entire existence as a fan of this team. So,
that's a good point. So, when did you become a fan?
I think I started watching football, which started with Cowboys games when I was like 8 or 9.
What year?
So that would have been the 08-09 season because I was born.
Oh wow!
Wow, dude. So sorry, brother. So sorry.
Yeah.
So, but that's a great kind of perspective, because all three have grown up, started in completely different eras. I grew up where I really started to truly remember the Cowboys. Again, my parents always say that in the Broncos Super Bowl, I said cuss words, but I really start to grasp. I remember like the 79 game. I don't remember like every part. I remember the 80 Philly losing to Philly, but really like 82, 83, 84, and then as Noe knows, 85. So I knew Dallas as one of the top, not quite the top, but they're still so good that everybody, worships who they are, and they're America's team. And then Noe, he literally catches them in year 2 of their Super Bowl run. And so Noe and I but we know the dominance. We know the Super Bowl wins. That's why I've always said, like, yeah, of course I want Dallas to win, but if they never win another Super Bowl, I've seen 4 in my lifetime. I'm good. Noe's at least seen 2, yet you've seen none, and you don't even know, like you said, NFC title experience or anything.
The furthest I've seen them go is to the divisional round, and I've never seen them win even a divisional game ever.
Yeah.
But honestly, same thing growing up as a Ranger fan. Growing up, never seeing them win anything. So if it does happen and I see a championship in my lifetime, it's going to feel that much sweeter because I've seen over 2 decades of not making it to the NFC Championship.
I never even thought of it from that perspective, Noe. There are people that know a Ranger World Series and not a Cowboy Super Bowl. Like the Rangers for me was the cherry. That was it. Every team that I follow has won a championship. From where I grew up to my college, to both my colleges, the college I didn't go to, Texas, but I'm a fan of, to the actual college I went to, A&M Commerce. They won a national championship. I'm good. Like, I'm here just to talk sports. Maybe that's why. Now, Noe will tell you, though, in game, I'm a little different. That's not the point. After the game, I find perspective and I find God. But I never even thought of it like that. You and millions are Cowboy fans who, when y'all finally win, will be like, man, we finally got what the Rangers got. And it just blows my mind to think that.
Your dad is having a field day in the comment section. And that does seem like you, so I'm going to go ahead and say that's fact.
Well, shut up. I mean, I don't know. But anyway, by the way, Mark the Sports asked, does Bruce Bochy get enough credit for the job he did? Oh, yeah.
But have a lot of people said that, though? That is a good question.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I think it's a good question. But I think everybody, he's kind of like, I'm trying to think of who's another manager that moves around.
I really don't think he's gotten the I don't think people's talked about what he did for that Ranger team last season as much as he should.
Really? I mean, what else can you say?
I mean, I've heard Corey Seager, I've heard Garcia, Montgomery to an extent, Evaldi, but not Bochy. Not as much as them. Like,
you know who deserves a ton of credit that doesn't get it?
Chris Young,
John Daniels.
This is basically his team, yeah, essentially.
Outside of the pitching,
yeah.
And I have been one of the biggest things about. I think I don't understand Ranger fans. They hate John Daniels. Ranger fans, as a core, hate John Daniels because they legitimately think that Nolan Ryan ran the team back then. They don't understand that Nolan Ryan wasn't the one digging through the depth charts in the minor leagues and making moves. He was a figurehead that came in to wave and smile, and that's it.
So a lot of people loved. So Ryan, I guess you might not know this because you started watching later on, but when I started watching in '93, it was Nolan Ryan's last year pitching. He was pitching for the Rangers. There was a famous incident with him and Rob Ventura, punching head. People loved him. He was here for 5 years, came back in a front office role. I think they loved him so much. And then there was a couple of things he said that kind of gave him credit for the improved pitching to start the 2010s, which was his particular work ethic. Like, keep your legs strong and healthy, like get cardio. That's just like little things like that were put out into the media that came from Ryan, that was enforced by managers and coaches on the players. And you kind of saw improved pitching in the early 2010s. But he got a lot of credit for that, not John Daniels. So maybe that's where it's coming from. And, of course, name recognition, too. And also John Daniels is one of those, the era of the young GMs, like him and Theo from Boston and Chicago. So
Theo Epstein,
yeah.
Who won a Super Bowl, won a World Series in both places.
Yeah, two places that were cursed, essentially.
Oh, I never even thought about that. Ryan,
one by Babe Ruth, one by Billy Goat.
That's right. Well, maybe Babe Ruth and the Billy Goat got close together later on.
Whoa.
Ryan, what are your thoughts on
this? It's not happy hours after hours. It's just happy hours.
We kind of are at that point. Ryan, as a baseball guy, and I'm not saying you're just a baseball guy, but you're a baseball guy. What are your thoughts on how baseball statistically is done now compared to in the past?
I think it's done a lot better recently. And I think a big reason for that is the rule changes, because it opened the pace of the game, or increased the pace of the games with the pitch clock. And I don't know if y'all saw it, but they changed the rule on the pitch clock with runners on base. It used to be 20 seconds. Now they dropped it back down to 15. So now it's the same as when there's no runners on base. So that'll quicken up the pace of the games as well. And then they made the bases bigger, and then they got rid of the shift. I think baseball is more exciting than it was. But even for me, big baseball guy, I didn't mind when games ran 3.5, 4 hours. I really didn't, because I love watching it. Whether it's on TV or in person, I didn't mind it at all. But I think it's just more exciting, and I think it's going to continue to grow. And especially now, because there's so many characters in the league.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
Because there's guys like, Bryce Harper, and then Shohei Ohtani, who's not much of a character, but he's such a larger-than-life character because of how he plays. There's not many guys in history that have been good pitching and hitting at the major league level, both at an elite level. So I think with the rule changes and just the characters that you see across the league now, I think it's only going to get better from here.
What about you, Noe?
So I know there's characters now. We had talked about that earlier. I think they just need to be. I guess for me, when I was growing up, I saw Sammy Sosa, Mark McGuire, Barry Bonds,
Yeah.
Manny Ramirez. To later on, Pedro Martinez. Those guys were widely known, maybe because of where they played, maybe because of endorsements.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really good characters out there. What's that Florida guy that Jazz Chisholm or
Jazz Chisholm. Mm-hmm.
Jazz Chisholm? Like he has a great personality. Put him out in that market. Like put all these other guys that have the charisma. Now, some of them are from countries where they don't. No, English was not their first language, so they might need an interpreter, or they need, But that part I get. But like, if you really want to get this sport back to where it was before, the pitch clock is a good start. Getting the personalities out there with endorsements, just out there so people can notice them and see them. To me, that's what's going to do it. But yeah. I like the direction of baseball, and I'll continue watching it. I stopped watching as much of it over the last few years because it was getting dull to me. But stolen bases are going back up again. I just wish batting averages were back up.
Yeah.
But I like the direction of baseball.
So, what are y'all's thoughts on like WAR and B WAR and D WAR and all that?
Yeah, I don't dive too deep into statistics like that. I'm with Noe with the batting average thing. You look at people on on media and on Twitter, but even like media people as well. I've heard some say that batting average is almost obsolete. It's all about the on base percentage and stuff like that.
And I will say this: as a kid of the '80s, on base percentage was pretty big back then as well. But yeah, I mean, batting average and wins and losses are, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but they're things of the past. Nobody looks at that. I still don't understand. I understand that on wins and losses because that is such an arbitrary thing. But batting average, I mean, I don't know. I still want my guys to get hits.
One of the hardest things to do in all sports is to hit a baseball.
Yep.
That's right.
Why is batting average devalued? That I will never get.
Well, because they're saying, it's such a luck thing. If you you can hit the ball hard and it not be a base hit, and you can hit the ball crappy and it be a base hit. But I mean, that's kind of the art of baseball. It's like, Crash Davis in Bull Durham talks about it. He's walking down the street and he's like 3 hits a week. If a minor leaguer just gets 3 more hits a week, that's, and he even goes to seeing eye, Texas League singer, seeing eye ground ball, double off the wall. Those 3 hits can change the life of a guy. And I look now and like WAR, wins over replacement. I get the idea, but it's still arbitrary because you have to have a baseline of, okay, who's the replacement? Like if it's player A is replacing player B and both of them are all-stars, well, then how did one, I'm not going to say I don't get it because I get the idea. I just think it's getting overused now. Like wins over replacement, just you can play that how you want, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's one of the things I have issues with WAR. I will say the only thing right now that I agree with that's newer compared to when I was watching was bullpen. Back when I was watching, starting pitchers would go 8-9 innings all the time. Mm-hmm. Arm trouble would be an issue. But now there's more sophisticated pitching styles. There's different pitches in general. You're not just throwing fastballs anymore. And not when I was watching either, but you get my drift.
Yeah.
The importance of bullpen and middle relievers and specialists, that I agree with. That should have happened when I was watching, actually, if I'm being honest. I'm glad it's happening now, and I'm glad they're getting paid because that is what's really determining who's winning. Like 5th and 6th starters are now long relievers in the postseason, and I think that's the difference now between teams that can, like the Dodgers, that have 100+ wins in the regular season, but losing 4 games in the NLDS.
Yeah, and a lot of managers take like an analytical approach when it comes to pitching now, as opposed to just situation or feel. I mean, we saw that towards the end of the season last year with the Blue Jays. The manager pulled out a pitcher that had been dominating, but he gave up one hit with a runner on first, and then the next batter was a lefty. And then statistically, that particular pitcher did not do well against lefties in some sort of situation or with runners on or something like that. And so they took that pitcher who'd been dominating all game out, and they brought in another guy, and he ends up giving the game-winning run, which kept the Blue Jays from getting a playoff spot.
Well, and then you look at the Ranger bullpen, who did exactly everything in the postseason that they didn't do in the regular season. And that goes back to where you can get too caught up in statistical. And I do think, as Mark Henry was saying, I don't think Bruce Bochy gets enough credit with that. Like, he knew what to throw, when to throw. And everybody wants to talk about, oh, well, Chapman, he was, oh my God, he was, he'd give you a heart attack. Yeah, but go look at the postseason and what Chapman did. He shut down everybody. I mean, yeah, it was crazy and it was scary, but at the end of the day, he shut down everybody. And so that's that part of the game. And this is where Noah and I always talk about this on Outdrink the Coverage, our weekly show, and just talking in person. We're so caught up in statistics and championships that we're losing the art of the game. We're losing the San Diego Chargers of the 70s and 80s who couldn't quite win it. Dan Marino, one of the greatest quarterbacks ever, who didn't win a Super Bowl. Or Aaron Rodgers, one of the possible greatest, who only won one Super Bowl. And that's all getting lost in numbers and championships. And now if you don't win a championship, you're trash. Like Noah and I were talking about the other day, like, where do you even look at the last 3 years of the Cowboys? That should have been some of the funnest, most enjoyable years that we've had as Cowboy fans. You basically wake up knowing you're going to win 70% of the time, yet they haven't won in the playoffs. And so you just have this dour, oh my God, the world, sucks. Football sucks. The Cowboys sucks. And I don't know. It's just like we're losing the fun of the sport, I think.
Yeah, it's going to start becoming baseball and basketball. What basketball is becoming it now, baseball started doing it with the Astros, maybe even before that, where there's going to be a lot of bad teams and a few really good teams.
Yeah.
And then there's teams in between where there's some years they're going to win 75, and then the next year they're going to win 89. And you think they're a contender, but they're really not a contender. It's just everybody is just so stacked. A few teams up here, a few teams down here, but everybody else doesn't
squeeze through. Yeah.
Yeah. And football is going to start becoming that. I mean, right now with the Cowboys, Jerry Jones said all in. We think we now know what he really meant by that. And it could be a full teardown after this season if they don't get to the title game or the Super Bowl. And that might be the best thing for the Cowboys going forward.
Long term, yeah, because you and I talked about that. The one thing you can say, positive or not, is since 2005, Dallas has not torn down anything. They just – and part of it is they've gotten lucky with quarterback decisions, but the quarterbacks have carried them, and where – maybe if they'd have done a full teardown in 2016, we might be talking about a team with 3 Super Bowls. I don't know that you can never decide that. I will say this though. I do think it's pretty cool. I was looking today on YouTube and somebody had posted like all the highlights from the 2011 Dallas Maverick run. And I will say this, it is really cool as a Maverick and Ranger fan to have maybe 2 of the most unique championship runs of not only the last 20 years, but maybe, I mean, even like I was listening to Joe Buck talking about the other day. He was like, he goes, I don't think people will realize just how special that Ranger run was. You don't see that in baseball. A bullpen that just was absolutely trash all of a sudden became what's, basically won the series for the Rangers. And so I do take some fun in that, how the Mavericks and the Rangers both have those kind of Cinderella special seasons.
Yes, I could. With the Rangers, they were mostly healthy.
Yeah.
And they had a Hall of Fame manager. That helped them there.
I mean, Rick Carlisle.
Ryan could probably explain that more. But for me, with the Mavericks, it was perfect coach and the most perfect 5 to complement, or perfect 4 to complement Dirk. You weren't asking Dirk to play a lot of defense. He had the long wingspan, so he could defend some. But really, you had Stevenson at shooting guard. You had Jason Kidd at point. You had the Matrix Sean Marion at small forward. Dirk at power, and then you had Tyson Chandler at center. All 4 of those 5 guys can defend, and 3 of them could shoot threes. One of them was a really good rebounder and could alter the shot of anyone that comes anywhere close to that paint. And then you have Dirk having the most unguardable shot of all time. That time, all of their ages, it was the perfect 1 year for that to work, and it worked. They beat a very legendary Miami Heat team with all 3 of their stars under 30. LeBron and Bosh were 26, 27. I think Dwayne Wade was 29, maybe almost 30. So, yeah, that was the only year that could have actually happened, in my opinion.
So what do you ever, and you and I have kind of talked about this before, I still, though, and I still feel like Mark Cuban gave up after that. I think he got his title and he was fine. And I feel like he used the looming at that time possible work stoppage as an excuse not to at least just pay everybody and rerun it back. And he kept saying, no, I got this plan. See, things are going to change when we finally come back to playing basketball. It'll be different. And it wasn't. And I look back now, and I got to admit, man, I have a lot of I feel like Cuban actually ended up letting the Mavericks down in the long run.
Yeah, getting Lamar Odom and the guy that didn't want to even be here was kind of symbolic of what happened over the next decade for the Mavericks.
And Luka kind of fell in their laps.
He's very lucky, yes.
And yet we're here, 6 years later, and I mean, I know the Mavericks are kind of considered they're the most, which is kind of funny because it could turn into 2011. Everybody keeps saying, well, if they figure things out, they're probably the most unbeatable team. But man, they can go 8 games and look unbeatable, and then they can go 8 games and look like they don't know what they're doing.
Lively and Gafford are kind of giving the Mavericks of this season a lot of possibilities for an extended run. It could be feast or famine. Like you said, they could be out in the first round, or they can make it to the NBA Finals. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just here to watch. So, I'm. What do y'all think?
This year's Mavericks team, I think, is definitely the true definition of a wild card. But the addition of PJ Washington, was it, and then Daniel Gafford? Yeah. That trade really helped. Daniel Gafford, I mean, he was saw that game the other night where the Mavericks had 18 dunks.
Yeah,
it was the most in a single game since the 50s or 60s.
And they lead the league in dumps since the trades. Since the trades, and it's even in the 2011. For me to hear that the Dallas Mavericks offense can go interior, I'm just amazed by that. I didn't know that was possible. And I do want to point out, this is one of those years where the Mavericks right now are the 8th seed, and they're 41-29. It's not like this team is 500 and struggling. It just feels like all of a sudden the West, and I don't know why, but it feels like for the last 30 years, the West has been the biggest, it says great teams end up being in the 7th, 8th, and 9th seed.
Yeah, it's real top. It's real top heavy in the West, and the Mavericks. It's like you said, they're kind of like you said. There's 8 games where they look like they're elite. I think either way, the Mavericks can score with the best of them, but because of how deep the West is, despite how good they've been, their inconsistency is what's been hurting them. Because I think they're good enough to be better than a 5 or 6 seed, a play-in team, but then just how inconsistent they've been. It doesn't help, especially with how deep the Western Conference is this year.
All right, let's finish up here. We've got, as you see on the screen, we have a new email. It's odtcshow@gmail.com because we're not just talking NFL. We got our first email from a fan. Steven asked, Dallas Stars, Stanley Cup or not?
Yes.
I'd say no.
Yes.
I like the team, but I know he knows this, and I've said this before he started struggling this year. Jake Ottinger is just not – he's a solid goaltender who has really hot streaks, but he is not a top 5 goaltender. And at the end of the day, I don't care how much you score. If you cannot stop the puck, you're going to lose in the playoffs.
That's a fair point. And I think Otter's dealt with a couple injuries this year too, which doesn't help, but he has been inconsistent in the guarding the net as well. But, they have weapons offensively, and it's a good point. You can score with the best of them, but if you can't stop them, then you're going to get outscored either way. But it's kind of like they're kind of like the NHL or the NHL versions of the Mavericks, who can score at will, but they'll give up 120 points in the process too. So, and Ottinger, but it could be one of those things too, where he gets hot and when the playoffs come around. But they have elite scorers. They got guys like Rope Hintz and Miro Heiskanen.
Jason Robertson has struggled this year. He's still almost a point for player, but he's not scoring the goals. But that's fine. Everybody's figured it out. Now, in saying that, Ben and Pavelski are, they're on borrowed time. I think you can make the case that Tyler Seguin is too as well, especially because he's not. I mean, he's like a fourth center now. So there's going to be some issues. But I will say this, and in turn, no one I've talked about this. It feels like with Dallas Stars, Dallas Mavericks, Texas Rangers, and even the Cowboys, it feels like we're finally about to hit a stretch where we're going to have a lot of playoffs. Maybe not a ton of championships, but a lot of playoffs.
Yeah, and that's exciting for all the teams because there have been stretches where all the teams don't. They do the exact opposite. So I feel like we're on that trajectory as well. The Stars made a Stanley Cup back in 2020 and then a conference final in 2021. The Mavericks made the conference finals just a couple years ago as well. They're before running into that Warriors team, but and the Rangers, of course, winning the World Series. So all these teams are getting there. They're on the cusp, but just lately it's just been the Rangers that have been able to get there and grab it. But I think we're going to see at least a lot more chances from all these DFW teams. They're going to be in the mix more often than they've been the last decade or so.
Hey, Noe.
Yes.
You can tell the two of us that started at 7 with hard liquor and the dude that started at 8 with some wine. That dude got all the energy now.
I love wine. It would take me 3 or 4 days to finish a bottle.
Yeah, I can't I've never gotten the wine.
I mean, I like wine. I just it's more of a I just slow sip whiskey. I really slow sip wine. So I could do I could do a house pour, like an 8-ounce pour, and I could sip on that the whole night, and that would be it.
When it comes to wine, I don't like the dry, bitter stuff. Mm-hmm. The reason I like plum wine is because it's sweet. And it doesn't have like an aftertaste, which makes it easier to drink. When it comes to liquor and stuff, when I was in college, I kind of hit that a bit more. But ever since then, I've been more of a beer guy. But when it comes to liquor, I'm a whiskey guy too. I like a little Johnny Drum or some Blue Chair Bay or something like that. So, but I've become more of a beer guy now. I mean, you guys saw I had the Coors the first time I came on a couple weeks ago.
Yes, sir. All right. I think we have a happy houred it out, talked all the news stuff. And Ryan, real quick, where can people find you on email and Twitter?
You can find my email, ryanfoxpxp@gmail.com. And I'm on Twitter at Alpha34Bravo.
And, of course, you're going to be doing a bunch of high school stuff and other things for us. Intern Noe. Pro Noe, I should say. Dude, I am so happy how our look back has taken off because you and I talk about it. It's the stuff we love to talk about, but man, we get a little nervous when you push it out because who the hell wants to hear about the 1981 giant field goal to beat the Cowboys in overtime? And so I got to admit, I've really enjoyed the views we're getting, and we're going to keep rolling it, man. Green Bay and I think honestly, the more enjoyable show. You and I are doing the 70s honorable mention top rivals for the Cowboys because it was such a big deal to play the Cowboys in the 70s. A lot of teams had their rivals, and you and I already spent like a couple hours a day researching and just having a blast talking about it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that could be a whole day discussion if you and I just have all the time in the world to do it.
All right. That's going to do it for this week. We'll be back in 2 weeks again for another happy hour. Ryan, thank you for joining us. Intern Noe. Until next time, you can find us on YouTube at L4